The path of wisdom has been, strangely, has been avoided. And some teachers have been, during these dark ages, during the last 2,000 years or more, some teachers have discouraged their followers to try to walk on the path of wisdom. And there are stories about this in the scriptures. Like, for example, there is an interesting story about a student that asked Krishna which one was a greater path, the Bhakti or the Jnana, which means wisdom, right? And the story goes that Krishna beat him so that he could understand that Bhakti was superior. That Bhakti was superior, right? So these are stories, but the reason this has been even discouraged is because of the assumption that the path of wisdom, that humanity was not ready for the path of wisdom. And then it was reserved to just a few. And we see at the beginning of the 20th century that the groups that follow the path of wisdom are very small and scarce. The teachers that taught the path of wisdom were, pretty much unknown, except for a few people that knew about them, like Krishnamurti or Ramana Maharshi. Robert Adams was here, right here in the valley for 20 years. And very few people knew that this great sage was right here in the valley. In fact, I didn't know. I would have been very interested in visiting him, right? Eventually, in the 90s, he moved to Sedona and he died there in Sedona. Nisargadatta Maharaj was a sage that lived in Bombay, and except for a small group of Westerners, disciples that went to visit him, Nisargadatta Maharaj was an unknown figure until much later, when the book I Am That became popular here in the West. Ramana Maharshi was somewhat known, but in a small circle. So the change happens around 2002 when the book The Power of Now comes to the market. The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle is obviously part of the Advaita tradition or Jnana or wisdom path. And then people became really fascinated by what Eckhart Tolle had to say. And after that, many other teachers began to come forward and teach Advaita, including Muji, Adyashanti, and many, many others. If you type Advaita today or Non-Duality in YouTube, you will find so many, many teachers that are teaching the path of wisdom. And still, I have to say that I became interested in this path in 2002 with this book, Power of Now, and it took me 10 years to get the awakening. And it shouldn't have been that long. It could have been much shorter if I had understood how this works, how this path really works. And I didn't have much information. We got this incredible book, The Power of Now, but from there to understand how the path really works, there's a long distance. So I'm going to explain how this really works. And I hope that this will save you a few years. Look, this path works in two stages. It's not only one, as in the Bhakti Yoga that you are told to find self-realization or God, right? And then you have this vague goal at the end that you're going to find God realization, self-realization. It doesn't work like that. The wisdom path operates in a different way. It breaks the path in two steps. And this is why it's so effective. The first step is awakening. And the second step ends in liberation. Therefore, if we understand this, we should not aim for liberation, because it defies it will not work really. You need to first aim for awakening. And in order to wake up, you need to understand what awakening is. At least intellectually, you need to have an understanding of what awakening is. And then look for it. And when I say look for it, I'm not talking like in traditional yogas that you meditate an hour and a half in the morning and an hour and a half at night and you practice so many techniques. No. This path doesn't work like that. It works in a different way. So, what really needs to happen is that you need to want the awakening. You need to want it. Now, you say, how can I create a desire in my heart to wake up? You cannot. You need to ask for it. In this path, what you will discover with awakening is that you don't exist. You don't exist in the way you imagine you exist. You are a completely different thing. So when you try to do this by yourself, with your own strengths, you are putting yourself in a situation that it's impossible. You don't have the power to wake up. You don't have the power to even create the desire to wake up. But you have the power to choose. At the ego level, still this universe works by the law of free will, right? So at that level, you can choose. What do you choose? You choose, for example, if you have the desire to wake up, you simply go for it. You choose to wake up. So you begin to create the intention, I want to wake up, and to affirm it, to request it, to the one that includes you, right? If you don't have the desire for awakening, then you begin to request that. I want to have a burning desire for awakening, right? You start at that point. Once the desire for awakening is there, then you begin to ask for awakening. Until awakening happens. And it will happen. It's not something that you will produce. You can't produce awakening.